So you have the floor.
Thank you. Okay, let me just, okay. Can everyone see my screen now? Yes, perfect. Chris, I let you go first and I jump in. I think you're muted though.
Yeah, so very nice of you just to say we're two Italians. I live in Italy, but I'm actually not Italian yet. So I've the pleasure to work with Line Check, which is an event that is similar to Estland's Music Week, a conference and new music festival that is organized by Music Innovation Hub. So Anna and I are colleagues in this endeavor. And besides actually organizing that sort of event, it's been almost 20 years that I've been involved in organizing B2B stuff, but also directly managing artists from Germany, from Italy, from the United States, that tour and that need funding and that, you know, have their normal duties. But I've always liked this, let's say, more political or B2B sort of level of things. And besides that angle of my work within Line Check, I'm also within the organization team of a boutique festival in Sicily that also does a few of these projects similar to Hemi, even if on a much smaller scale. So for Line Check specifically, I've been looking for several years after the conference program. Now I've passed that piece of the work on to a wider group of colleagues to focus a bit more on partnerships and a few projects, one specifically that is the Federation of Music Conferences and a tender program that will be that we will be discussing a bit later. So as I said, I've been involved in that kind of world for a long time, doing everything from organizing incoming missions of buyers to Italy or also other countries, to helping to form outgoing delegations to other conferences. And in addition to that, I've been involved with associations and networking through the world, from being absolutely not from a musical or music business family or background, just a normal random person, and to advance this a little while, we are coming up with this title. We got asked and invited to host this session to a very heterogeneous group of people. Thought, how can we do something that hopefully helps, that maybe you already know, but if there's anything you have already discussed within Hemi extensively, feel free to flag it, and we deviate the discussion towards something that you think is more useful. But we thought, well, there's so much stuff out there. There's tons of conferences, and there's so much of possibility of capacity building. There's just maybe even too much. How do you find out what is actually for you, and how can you make sure that the time that you invest is somehow sustainable? Anyway, I'm surely not doing this alone. I could never do that. So I'll pass on to my colleague Anna, who can then explain what she's doing and in how far that is related to this about our long session.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Christoph. I'll give it back to you after. Hello, everyone. I think we haven't met in Tallinn, unfortunately, but we met like virtually in the very first kickoff meeting. So nice to see some familiar faces. So I will be brief in the presentation, because if you were there at the kickoff, you already heard my background. I'm very allergic too, so I will be very peaceful with everyone sneezing, and I will be probably sneezing a lot because today it kicked off very badly. So first of all, I'm allergic. That's the first information. No, jokes apart. My name is Anna Zo. I'm the operations manager of Music Innovation Hub, which is the company Christoph was mentioning before, and is the company behind the organization of Linecheck Music Meeting and Festival, which is the Italian and Milanese version of the Athens Music Week. So for the company, yeah, I try to organize like all the operational aspects and make sure that everything runs kind of smoothly, but more in the specific and more like consistent and relevant for what we're discussing today. I'm in charge of several European projects. So I've been like since the very beginning of the history of Music Innovation Hub, which is pretty short actually, because we were born in 2018, so we are a pretty young company. But thanks to the fact that Linecheck is existing for longer, because it was now it's in November it's going to be the 9th edition. So basically Music Innovation Hub in 2018 acquired the brand of Linecheck that is running for a longer time. Thanks to the history of Linecheck and the fact that the festival and conference is running since a while now, we've been able to build a lot of international partnerships and like to get in touch and connect with a lot of hubs, conferences and organizations across Europe working in music and innovation. So thanks to this, we were able since the very beginning of the company to enter and to build a lot of projects and networks and relations with other partners across Europe. So I was and I am in charge of many of these European projects. Some of them I'm gonna discuss them shortly. I've been focusing a lot on the music tech space. So I'm in charge of this music tech accelerator that we've been launching in 2021. And let's say all within Linecheck, I try to curate all the panels and topics and sessions that deal with music and tech. We run on a regular basis meetups in our headquarters in Milan to connect the tech professional with the music ecosystem and with artists, with developers, with the startups. So the idea is really to create a community in Italy of music tech passionate and professionals. So yes, between let's say business development, education and community building, we are active in several layers of the music tech space as well. So these are my two main focuses beside the running of the operations at Music Innovation Hub. So we thought it might be interesting to start with a brief overview of how does like Europe support the music ecosystem. So you probably, as Christoph was saying, that you might know that already, or you might not. If there's something that you already know, just like shout it out and like we can skip that. But it's always interesting as we are talking about developing your own projects and products and services and networks in the music business. It's important to know that the European Commission might be an interesting partner, because financing and funding not only come from the private sector, but as well from the public sector. And often, at least like in Italy, I don't know how does it work in your own country, but like often is easier and it's more relevant to get support from Europe rather than from your own country, which is sad, but it's a truth. So it's important to be friends with them and to I mean, this is recorded, so this is probably gonna go to the European Commission, but still I'm saying like only positive stuff about them. So European opportunities for the music sectors. The music sector has a big dedicated space within European fundings, which is called Music Moves Europe as a hat. The main part of these music specific fundings is under the Creative Europe program, which is the one that, for instance, supports Hemi as well. We are now running in the 2021-2027 agenda. I put 26 is a mistake, is a 27 agenda. But we have interesting results from what happened in the agenda of 2014-2020, in the sense that, as you can see, like more than almost 200 music projects were funded under the previous agenda for more than 100 million euros spent into the music sectors. With the new agenda, so the one that we are part of right now, there is even more focus on the music sector because they introduces this approach which is sector specific. So there are a lot of funding opportunities and dedicated actions within larger Creative Europe programs that are focused on music. So it's an interesting year for, and it's an interesting period for looking at funding opportunities for music sector. The main programs that are dedicated to music within the Creative Europe framework are the cooperation projects that can be small, medium, or large, depending on how many partners are involved in the project. Platforms, network, Music Move Europe's preparatory actions, and Music Move Europe's dialogues. These are the main tracks within the Creative Europe framework. One example of preparatory action, for instance, is the Music Air project, which some of you might be familiar with, which is actually a cascade funding, because basically it's a project that won a grant to distribute further grants, and it's very interesting for smaller companies as well, because they try to finance and fund smaller projects compared to, for instance, cooperation or platform, which are usually larger and require a minimum years of existence of the partners applying and a minimum number of partners involved within the project. And Music Moves Europe Dialogues is something that, for instance, we are gonna discuss after with the project that Christoph mentioned before, which is the tender and the federation of conference and the actions that we are developing with this within this specific project. Not only Creative Europe is an interesting track to look at, because music is also addressed in other European fundings. For instance, within the Horizon Europe program, in 2021, they launched these specific projects called Towards a Competitive, Fair and Sustainable Music Ecosystem. It was targeting only three projects that were already selected. We are part of a consortium called Open Muse, and the project was, and the total sum of grant that was designated to these three projects was 9 million euros. So Horizon is also like, now they launched this one call towards a competitive, fair and sustainable music ecosystem, but they usually develop other projects within that deal with music as well. Horizon are a bit more complicated, especially because there is a strong research component. So it's always good to have involved a university or a research center or some institutions that are like more established within the research field, so and academic field. So it's but it's interesting because it can really connect like the education and research part with the practical market and ecosystem scene. Erasmus Plus as well might offer interesting opportunities, especially in the mobility field related to music, of course. And another one that I wanted to highlight and point it out because it's a new one and might be interesting for you to even look at that now, because it's this new call launched from the European Institute of Technology, which launched this pilot for culture and creativity. And music is one of the impact area they are looking at. And there are several projects that are going to be financed within different areas and tracks. One of that, for instance, is education. Another is acceleration for startups. Another one is about social impact and music activities. And there is another one that is more focused on the launch of new product and services within the music sector. So it's more like focused on the product and service itself, while what we've been seeing before was more like focus on projects and networks rather than products and services, while the European Institute of Technology is really working on these product and services as well. It's an interesting model because usually the before mentioned the first three kind of programs basically they provide a grant which is like partly finance, like for the most of the part is financed and is granted by the European Commission, and another part, which is usually 20 or 30%, is co-financing from the organization themselves. What is interesting from the European Institute of Technology calls is that like they are trying to find this sort of financial mechanism for which is the consortium itself, so it's the partners that apply for the project, or is the or the mono beneficiary that applies for the project, that also has to contribute to the sustainability of the European Institute of Technology itself. So it's kind of entering a public-private partnership in which are the organization themselves that need to find an economic sustainability for the project and to contribute to the sustainability of the institution itself. So it's something that is worth to look at for because it's an innovative model to look at European grants and European partnerships. This is it's interesting to see how this is from the agenda 2014-2020. So it gives an idea of how the resources and the grants were distributed in the different kind of projects, so platforms, networks, and the cooperation. So it's interesting to see the distribution of how many projects got funding in which tracks, and also the geographical distributions. It really gives an overview on how many projects and funds were given according to the geographical distribution. I have, this is very sensible. Okay. Okay. No, I can. Sorry, it's moving really. Okay. Okay, so basically this, let's say, was an overview of the European Commission opportunities that are dedicated to the music sector. I don't know if this is going to be relevant right now, because again, I'm not already super familiar with the level and the stage of the projects where you are in at the moment. So this might not be relevant at the very at this specific moment, but it's very relevant, I think, at any point of a development of a music organization career, because it's again, it's something that beside the financial support, that of course is very important, and it's important not only look at private fundings, but also public fundings, because it can be, especially at the beginning, can be very relevant to raise money to start a project or to consolidate a piece of a project. So beside the financing part, it's also very relevant because of the relations and the networks that you can really create through this kind of project. So it's important to look at them not only from the financing point of view, which is of course very, very relevant, but also from the point of view of what kind of connections with the ecosystem, with the music and with the European and international ecosystem you can create through this project. The same is for not just like getting money from the Commission to develop your own project, but also, as you are doing right now, participating into European projects and European activities as music professionals or as artists or as individuals, let's say, that access these programs that are funded by the European Commission. So this is, let's say, another level of participation into European opportunities for music. I mentioned here, like it's as you saw before, like in the 2014-2020 agenda, almost 200 projects were funded just related to music. So it's a lot. Like there are really like a lot of players involved, a lot of activities developed, a lot of events, and like it's a really large ecosystem, and it's not necessarily relevant to know all of them, but it's good to know the one that can be useful for you. Hemi is definitely one that can be useful for you, but just to let you know that it's not the only one. Of course, it's a very large ecosystem, and in the references at the end there is the full list of music projects that were funded through European grants. So if you want to have a deeper look at that, it's all listed in the end. I mentioned here just like a few of them, just to give you an idea of, because it's really ranged, it's really wide. It can really go from support to classical music association, to support to opera music association, to support to activities with music and kids, or like projects that aim at using music as a driver of social change. So it's a really wide variety of projects funded. Here I put some of those that can be interesting. Of course, within the innovation framework, Hemi is one of the outstanding projects in the agenda 2014-2020, which is of course focused on a specific geographical area, but it's very much focused on innovation and the exchange of innovative practices within the music ecosystem. I mentioned another one which might be relevant for you, not only because we are involved as Music Innovation Hub, but because I know many of you deal with new technologies, and it's Music Tech Europe Academy. This is an acceleration program for music tech startups. So it's very focused on the tech side, it's very focused on the access to finance side, and it's a pan-European program for startups that are working within the music tech space. So this might be Meso events and is involved as well. So George is involved as well, and it's an interesting project if you're looking into the more technical side of your solution or product in the music business. In the other projects, for instance, that might be relevant for some of you are related to gender balance objectives that are pursued, of course, by the European Commission. So just to mention a couple of them, but again, it's a much broader a much broader list. Key Change is a project that was funded by the PRS Foundation in 2019. It aims at reaching gender balance within festival lineups, speakers, proportion, organization teams. So it really aims at reaching gender balance at all level of a music organization or festival or venue or whatever kind of organization is working in the music field. And it's a very interesting project that provides mentorship for both artists and innovators, entrepreneurs within the music space to push forward representative and diversity in the music space. MEWEM is another project which is really similar. It's more focused on entrepreneurs and female professionals rather than artists as well, but it's a very interesting project as well. Platforms and networks, two of the most, let's say, old and constant in receiving European grants are these two ones that I mentioned, ESNS Exchange and Live Europe. ESNS Exchange is a project launched by Eurosonic and aims at supporting mobility for artists between showcase festivals and supporting showcase festival to get like access to a vast variety of artists through this exchange program. Live Europe is a project that like aims at supporting venues and music venues also to help them showcase diversity within their lineups and acts that they book. Networks is also interesting because you can really see associations such as the European Music Council, which since years now brings on events, policy activities, policy activations, conferences, news, like to cover and to tackle the European music ecosystem. And I mentioned also the European Jazz Network because just to show that it's the kind of and the range of music that is covered by these European opportunities is not just, of course, contemporary music, and it's not just the way is very cross genre and it's very wide. So these are some examples, but again, the list is much longer than this. Why is it? Let's say, it's moving really weirdly. Why is it important for you to either participate as you are doing right now, or at least know that this project exists? Because like most of these projects offer mentoring, speaking, if you are a professional, or showcasing, if you are an artist, opportunities Europe-wide, industry connection, mobility opportunities, networking, market testing of your product or solution, or even go to market of your product or solution, and of course sometimes even fundings. So this is what these projects have in common, and this is why it's interesting to either take part of them or like to connect with the other people that take part of them, because it's they offer like many benefits that might be relevant for entering or consolidating an idea or a business within the music ecosystem. Let's say the number of networks that are around in the music industry in Europe are not only European funded networks and projects, but there are also other networks and associations that are not necessarily funded by the European Commission, so they're not necessarily linked to the European Commission, but they are just like Europe umbrella organization representing a certain category of professionals, for instance, within the music ecosystem. Christoph is gonna dive into that also a little bit more, but just to say, to make clear that not all the European networks that deal with the music ecosystem in Europe are funded by the European Commission, but they can be spontaneous and autonomous organizations that just like gather mostly for these purposes that I listed here. So like for representing common interests that are common to a certain category of professional in the music ecosystem, lobbying towards the market, towards institutions, towards policymakers, and towards audiences. Of course, sharing practices, information, knowledge, and resources among them, research and education, and networking. So you might see many networks and associations that are not directly, that are existing beside the fundings, the existence of a funding from the European Commission. One example of this, again, we brought two examples that we are directly involved in, because we can have a, of course, direct view and connection with those, and because this might be also interesting given the projects that you are developing and the career that you're doing. So one of these is Music Tech Europe. That's, let's say, is a brand new association that gathers the different hubs, accelerator programs, research organization, or company working in the music tech space and trying to support the music tech scene. So the objective is really to build bridges between music and technology. This was funded by 9 members, which you can see listed in the map and also at the website. Music Innovation Hub is the Italian partner. Hemi and Meso are the Greek partner. There is Barcelona Music Tech Hub, Music Tech France, Music Tech Germany, Music Tech Norway, Stockholm Music City, and California Music Tech, and also Music Finland, Music Tech Finland. So it's an example of independent and private companies and organizations that, let's say, gather together and like set up a new legal body. In this case, this is a non-profit Belgian association, but it could take different forms to, I mean, address and tackle specific issues, in this case, in the music and tech space, together at a European level to be, let's say, stronger and have a more powerful voice towards the people we want to talk to. So this is an example of, for instance, association that has nothing to deal with a European funded project, but has a European dimension because of the geographical diversity that it covers. And then, of course, it might apply to European grants, but let's say its existence does not depend upon European grants. So this is an even different level compared to what we've been seeing before. If there is no specific question or like points on this, I would maybe leave it to Christoph to dive into other kind of association and go into the conference part. So if there is no question, leave it to Chris. Okay, cool.
All right. So I need the next slide, please. This is the next one. Yes. So to give you an example, very concrete and very new. So with the event that we curate in late November in Milan, and a bunch of other events that you probably know, we have founded through our, and we found officially in December 2022, but we've been working on that for a while. a federation of music conferences that was a bit overdue, because somehow if you look at the ecosystem as a whole, one of the very few places where a single event hosts such a large variety of stakeholders are such conferences. And we thought, well, let's do this together and set it up. And the status quo is that we're looking for more conferences to join. The common denominator is that the event needs to have somehow a professional address. It needs to have somehow a conference or networking part. But the reason why I'm mentioning this here is that also if you are, for instance, organizing small conferences, you can still join. So I somehow saw that somebody was writing, yeah, it's the major conferences. I wouldn't say LineCheck is a major conference. We're a relatively young event with a relatively small budget, but we are very much welcoming also brand new events, also different formats. And in this specific moment, we are creating the whole setup of the federation, of rebuilding it, and making sure that the governance is somewhat inclusive to what most of the fellow conferences would like to see. So I'm also mentioning this because not the federation directly, but the group of founders got appointed by the European Commission to organize the so-called dialogues that also happened at Tallinn Music Week, and which should help to adjust the Music Moves Europe program to the needs of the sector, and help also to give input to the MEPs, to the parliament, to build a framework that is in line with the existing or maybe also future wishes of the sector, but also the priorities of the European Commission, which includes diversity. You see, you're in Hemi, not for a case. The diversity also means, not in addition to male, female, whatever gender question, diversity also means small and big, and north and south, and east and west. And also different sectors. So the question was, how can we help the Commission to engage better with the sector? We're making ourselves an idea. We don't know yet specifically, but we're getting there. And we're very much interested in receiving also feedback. Just give me 1 second. I have to open my kids the door the door of the house. 1 second, please.
Anna, are you going to share this presentation with us afterwards? Perfect. I think everyone will
sure.
want it. Great.
Okay, there we go. Sorry for the disturb. So yeah, we're a bunch of conferences, but in all these conferences, we're not reinventing the wheel. We work with a very broad network of associations or different sorts of networks that already Anna mentioned. And the question is like how to orientate. So within all these conferences, we're going to get there quickly. Gotta somehow make sure you're doing the right moves, but also within these events, the associations, the industry associations are very present, and there's a large variety of them, and I've just named a few that are in addition to the European funded networks, but that are actually the lobbying groups. And I've just put the international umbrella organizations, which is like for the labels, the IFPI, that's mainly the major labels. Impala is the Association of Independent Record Companies. Well, they're called umbrella because they hold within these umbrella organizations the national organizations, which, for instance, only in Italy, Impala has, I think, 2 or 3 different organizations being members. And in most of the territories, there's a national association, for instance, of independent record labels. There's usually the major labels being organized in IFPI or directly or via their national umbrella. In publishing, I did a very obvious mistake. It's not IFPI there, but it's IMPF. This is the International Music Publishers Foundation, and they then have different national societies being part of that. There's CSAC, which is the international umbrella organization of the collecting societies. Europe hosts the festivals, Live DMA. Live DMA is the umbrella organization of the national organizations of the live clubs, and sometimes also festivals. Then there's a couple of manager associations. So there's a whole bunch of people that wander around Brussels trying to lobby the best they can, trying to get some money for their members, trying to make sure that the legislative framework is in line with the requests of their members, and just be present wherever they can. So there's a lot between the European projects where you could participate if there are open calls. There are different sorts of programs like Key Change also, where there are also calls. There's all sorts of different things. Like my thought over the recent month actually was also what is actually useful to do, because it's very, very easy to get stuck in this somehow policy B2B kind of capacity building world, while actually not finding enough time to develop the own product, and become somewhat a let's say a conference and B2B expert, and becoming somewhat known in that world without maybe even having the product that actually connects with the audience or with somebody that would invest into what you're doing. So somehow these associations, they can help. For instance, if you are a label and you are joining your national labels association, then most likely you are going to be welcomed, especially if you are willing to spend some time with it and be active in that organization. And from there, it's relatively easy then to advance to an international level and attend like general assemblies and networking events and so on and so on, which gives a broader network. I've also listed here the collecting societies, because if you're a publisher or if you are a writer or an author, then a lot of these societies are participative and anyway have work groups and so on that then gather with other work groups from other collecting societies and similar. So for people who like to be active in associations, this is a very good way, though it's very time consuming and it's not paid, at least at 99%. So networking can be great, but it can also be very misleading and yeah, very time intense. So Anna, if you might want to switch to the next slide. Yeah, so the European music conferences within the European continent music conference and the worldwide music conference, and that's quite a mess because there's so many of them, and they are all very, very different, from a bunch of people who are really interested in a topic to events that have been founded by the local town council, the tourism board, or whatever, because they think it's a great idea to bringing a bunch of industry people as sorts of let's say influencers, and you never know really what you're going to get out of it, because the effect of working in these in this a bit weird part of the music system, of the ecosystem, is something you got to think well about, because also that is very time intense. So the question is, and we can't give a specific answer here, because the participants of Hemi are also diverse, which is something that makes it very interesting, but also a bit harder to understand. So can't tell you, oh yeah, you got to go to Future Music Forum, or you got to go to Mama, or you got to go to Reeperbahn or whatever. So I can just share a little bit of my own experience, how I see it, which might not be right, but yeah, it's also a very personal approach on how you like to interpret these kind of offers. So gotta evaluate what you want, and there are conferences that are very regional, that maybe are also, because they're very regional, very small, though I'd think sometimes it makes a lot of sense to attend these events, because maybe they bring in just same as maybe a conference in a country where you are in, they bring in a smaller amount of internationals that are then there for a few days and have got nothing to do, because they have a few networking events, speed meetings or panel, or they got to do a couple of things. But usually people are more accessible when they're outside of their usual habitat. So meaning, for instance, if you're an artist that is, or a manager that is looking for an agent, then going to Great Escape is probably not a great idea, because all these agents are with their buddies and their clients, meaning they're chasing for the promoters and the festivals at one of the hotspots of the industry. So it will be very, very competitive. But if you have maybe one of those people, the specific agent or whatever, coming to your own event in your own country or in your own region, then it's much easier to find them. But that's why we put down the conferences are very helpful, but they're not the holy grail, is because great to know a person, but you got to have the product that connects also to the need of the specific person that you get in touch with. So you absolutely need to get first what is the value of what you are offering. And it's great to have a decent agenda, but in terms of phone book and contacts and so on. But surely it depends on on what you represent, if that has a market, if that raises some sort of interest by people that help you making money with it, or help you getting the non-economic success you're seeking for, which might be a social impact or whatever. So there are big events which make a lot of sense. There are also very small events that make a lot of sense. Finally, it also comes down to how can you pay to attend those, because you know, with hotels, tickets, and buying drinks for everybody and all that stuff, it can be very expensive. Another thing that why despite we're organizing one, I don't think there are the holy grail, is because there's a lot of companies or a lot of very interesting and innovative players who actually do not care about them. That's something that we are experiencing, and we're an open platform for everybody, because you can just buy a ticket. You know, there's no entry scan, like you can attend, you cannot attend, everybody can attend, but not everybody that we'd like to see also does attend. And it's also good that there are people critical about the events that we are running, because that helps us when we enter a conversation with them to understand what we can make better to have them being more inclusive. Though yeah, that has to be kept in mind, that not all the players like that sort of event. Anna, do we have another slide? No, we don't. So yeah, the question is of how not to get lost. You can get lost in a bunch of links that we've put for you here. But finally, the question should be, what is actually the message, or the business, or the artist, or the startup, or whatever it is that I'm representing, and in how far does that program, that conference, or whatever it is, does that affect my activity, and in how far does that actually bring something new to the table that is relevant for me. But when it comes to specific geographic areas, it might make sense to go there and to check what the area is like, how the people roll, and so on. But to attend every single conference around Europe, and then finding out that a lot of the people you always meet again, because you know, you kind of like in a conference kind of family. It can be a short circuit that does not really help you. So it definitely makes sense to not always hang out with the same people, just walk around alone, make new friends, and yeah, and not forget that you cannot attend events in every single part of Europe and try to have a very detailed, very broad network through this kind of event, because then if that's a strategy, then basically you wouldn't be doing anything else than attending these conferences. So what sounds maybe a bit critical to our own kind of event, I think it's fair to say that you want to, like, that kind of platform that we are building, we want to service the delegate, the professional, to build something relevant and to have people who are actually developing their business and their persona and their artists within our events. So great if people come to check it out. That's absolutely wonderful. But it also makes sense that you go to events where you feel like there's a selection, that people well know why they are going to a specific event. And just to leave you with a thought that I was writing down while Anna was speaking, before I leave the very last words, maybe if you have some comments and questions, great. If not, no problem. But before I leave the last words to Anna, when being involved in European projects on whatever scale or on whatever public funding projects, that's great. Big problem is when you write these programs, they're always very ambitious, and then you get the funding, and then you realize that you have to do all that stuff that you've written in this program, which is quite an issue, because you think, oh yeah, if I put another thing in there, then I will win it. I will put another partner in there, then it's going to be better. And then you're finding yourself with a lot of different partners to coordinate, a lot of things to, like, oh shit, I forgot to do this multiplier event, I forgot to do this and that, and things can happen. So great to do it, but just do or get involved with what you really think helps you a lot, and maybe something that you would be doing somehow anyway, maybe not with this intensity, but something that you really need, instead of becoming a professional project participant, or if you're becoming a professional music conference goer and you see all these people wandering around, you think, like, what are they actually doing? Where do they get their money from? And I think that is something that should be avoided if possible. So that's my remarks. I hope that somehow helps. And if there are any question, then just let's know. I mean, the more open the discussion, I think the happier we are. We've got another half an hour left. Anna, back to you.
No, I totally agree with you, and I would like to hear from the others now, actually. What's your top 3 recommendations for writing good projects for you funding? Yeah, let's start. That's more from me, but then Chris, I will definitely ask you to jump in. Top 3 recommendations. What Christoph was saying, like, first of all, like, build something that, like, you would do even if you didn't have the European funds, like do something that you really want to do, not just like not do it because of the European funding, but like the other way around. So I think being like 100% sure that that's really what you want to do, and not like write the project because just to answer a call. That's the advice number one. Advice number two is like have a super like build your partnerships before, so like work with the people that you know it's gonna work well, so not necessarily your best friend, as Christoph was saying, not just the people that you hang out with during English conferences and stuff, but like people that you know, like the project management and the coordination of the consortium is actually going to be functional, because that's okay, exactly, so we are aligned with the one. So find good partners, exactly. And also the other thing I would say, so the third is like if you try once and you don't succeed, you're like the first time is really difficult, you're gonna succeed, so don't worry about that and like do it again, because it really gets like, it's really economy of learning. So it's you really shouldn't give up if the first time or the second time or the third time is not going to work, because it's completely normal, and the commission is so used to see projects that arrive like all the time, like once again, and maybe the third time it's the right one, because it's written in a better way, or it's more like convinced by the like you see more conviction in the way it's written. So it's don't really give up on that. So yeah, I would say not just write it to answer a call, find good partners, and don't give up or like get offended if they reject it the first time or the second time or the third time. And also I think like it's a fourth, but it might be useful anyway, like always have an external eye looking at it, because if you are too much into the project, you give so many things for granted, and you have to consider that the people that read your application like usually have no really clue of what you're saying. So if you give too many things for granted, they are just not going to understand. So you always have to have an external eye that can tell you, okay, this is clear, or like this is just like in your mind. So that's the other point, I guess.
Yeah, another thing is if you have a project that is somehow already existing, I don't think that's the problem, but it needs to have an innovative element to it, because otherwise there's no sense in funding it. And when it comes to the strategic allocation of the partners, maybe also consider the diversity, meaning the geological diversity, but also the diversity of the experience in running these projects. So if you present a project with people that have already, that are or doing nothing else than European projects, or it's always the same folks, then probably that's less interesting than having a mix of people who are professional in doing this kind of projects, but also bring in a series of new people to the table, which I think is an important goal of the commission, of enabling that new players can enter the market.
Yeah, Chris, one for you, I would say, what would be the best place or way to find agents and publishers? I manage a few bands. I need collaborations across the EU, at least, and I feel like there is not enough time at music conferences. You can read it in the chat as well.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. So it really depends on the type of artist, and then sorry, just just seeing a few things popping up in the chat. Well, so it depends on what kind of logic that is in terms of, for instance, agents. If somebody is looking to develop a management strategy that goes country by country rather than going through the US, American, UK kind of centralized network, or the few European agents that are based in Europe, or the international agents that are based in Europe, mainland, I mean. It really depends on the approach. So if you want to go through a very competitive route with your artists, because you think they perfectly fit to a series of players that are either very, very selective when it comes to the kind of music, or they are very selective because they only want big, very, very big artists, or stuff that is making immediately money, then there are specific places which are better than the others, but still you might not find the player easily accessible. But I think personally it depends really on the project. If there is a project that you handle that has a decent growth, and that can be well presented, and there is attraction, then it's also possible to speak with people that you find usually inaccessible, and then it might make just sense to reach out to them or find people that know them, and do just a more sort of organic networking rather than attacking them at conferences. While if the approach is more country by country, like more as you would manage maybe like a jazz or a world artist, or an artist that is well known in their home territory and doing their living there, but you want to approach a few spot markets, then I wouldn't know what better way there is than going through conferences, but just focus maybe like on a specific target of people. You know, sometimes you travel very far, and really this one contact or this one person that you've made with that you just like to meet, you know, and that's it. So not being like over ambitious, you know, because that can be a bit anxious, that can create a bit of anxiety if you have your schedule with 15 minutes full of stuff. I mean, it might also look a bit weird, like what's this person doing there with all these 15 minutes meetings, while I think these events that we are running are very nice if they are somewhat breaking the ice and breaking down a barrier between people, because you just get to know them, and then when you know them well and you have the right product to offer, then maybe that's a more likely fit. So if you need collaborators, then I don't see what different ways there are than going to conferences, mailing, kind of cold mailing people, developing a network. But yes, I think the most important thing is that the artist is a very, very good fit to the person that you're approaching, which is a bit like pitching a story to a journalist. You know, you got to know well that this person is going to be receptive for the story that you're pitching, because you've well researched that this might fit, and the story that you're offering is sexy enough for that specific media where you would like to see a story published in. That is very generic, but I think that yes, the fit really makes the difference, and then trying to get hold of people and just having fun and not making it too aggressive, because it's like pitching an artist to a very picky label. Then usually they don't want to get the mail from the manager. They want to get the mail from their best buddy who is pointing them towards a band. So they think they have to discover it, and not like just a cold pitch that maybe works in a more like in a tech or startup world towards investors, where you're talking about ROIs and things like that, which is not specifically the case in if you're representing artists and try to place them with labels or publishers or agents and so on.
Okay, I was seeing like question about like export. Yeah, definitely like export offices are the right partner for looking for opportunities for yeah, export activities. So there is an umbrella association of export offices, which is called Hemi. So there you can really find like all the activities of all the European music export offices, and they organize also activities themselves as consortium. But yeah, I would say that the main reference point for each country should be the national music export office, that of course in the case is Music Estonia or Music Poland, as you were saying. So
in addition to that, music export offices are a great resource, because they can also get you the funding that you need to do certain things that you wouldn't be able to do on your own cash. But also there, it's the same logic. I mean, they're great people, but they can't make wonders if your product is not connecting somehow organically with an audience or with a specific, you know, group of people also on a B2B level. Then there's not much they can do. I mean, they can bring you, maybe they can push you into a series of showcase events and you can test it out, but you can do the showcase circuit, but really if you don't break out of it and you don't generate decent ticket sales and streams and build a real audience, then there's not much, you know, there's not much point of doing this. So yes, export offices help a lot, but with the right project.
Yeah, and to answer Aska regarding the electronic music scene, no, I mean that's definitely like all the association and networks and projects we were talking about are really like cross genre. So it's like there is no specific I mean, they're really covering like the whole music scene. Of course, there are some projects that are more focused on the electronic music scene. So in terms of association and the European projects scope and mission and objectives of the European Commission, of course, that's cross-genre. But if you want to dive into more specific projects into the or conferences into the electronic music, there are, for instance, like in the resources that I listed in the end, there is a series of EU music funded project, which is also divided by genre. So it doesn't mean that the general one are not cross, but it means that there are some that are more specific than others. So you can look into that for the European funded projects. Two that comes to my mind is one is called Shape, and the other one is called Restart. And that's really about the like the underground, like fostering the underground scenes and artists and venues. So that's way more into the electronic music scene. So this one, I think you should definitely check them out. And Yeah, also, and also in terms of conferences, like for instance, I'm thinking about like Sonar. Sonar has one of the most interesting conference in Europe, the Sonar Plus D, and that's like basically around electronic music. So that's one example. But also like there is a new one in Berlin which is called Wise, which I think is also very interesting. They are really into electronic music, new tech, experimental scene. So that's also the arts electronic as well. Like there are many conferences that are more focusing on the electronic music, even though the more generalistic one, as we could say, I would say Line Check, for instance, is not genre specific. We don't really cover like jazz and classical music. We always wonder if we should do that more, and we should. The answer is always yes. We should try to be even more inclusive in terms of genre. But even we are kind of generalistic in terms of genre. There is a lot of people working in the electronic music scene that come to us and like professionals in that sector. So it's not another world at all. Like it's definitely part of that.
Yeah, it's definitely not another world. We have a lot of people that are both from dance, but also like from underground techno, very, very different things. And they hang out with a commercial rap people. I mean, that's the fun part of it, that sometimes you run into a group and what are you guys doing here together? And we're just met, and it's great. If it comes to a very specific kind of music, then it might make sense to attend the small but very selective events, where actually the part of the business that is a real music fan would also go. Like if you're into a more experimental electronic music stuff, then maybe you go to CTM. Despite it's a more consumer festival, you will also find some bits and pieces of agents there, or these kind of let's say boutique-ish events that are very very prestigious somehow, or that are that have a certain message. Then you would think that also all the events that are very cool because they are very nice, or because they were very well curated. If you go to the Guess Who, or if you go to Bad Bond Kilby, or if you go to CTM or to Atonal, or to such events, then to Rewire, then it's or Unsound in Poland also, then it's very likely that you're going to have a fair share of also the agents going, because they want to see new stuff as well, and not only go to showcase events. So if you played Unsound very good, then you know what I'm talking about. Any further questions so far? Yeah, go ahead. One more question from you.
That's like a psychotherapy question, like how do I manage
that? Yeah, I think you got to select which story you're telling to whom, that it doesn't look like you are kind of doing projects or being in the business just to pitch your own stuff because you don't find an agent or so. I think that's something that you always have a bunch of artists hanging around at these conferences, and you're like, oh shit, it's the artist that is promoting himself or herself, and there is not much opening from the delegates usually to that kind of logic. So if you are professionally working as an artist or a professionally also doing something else, then I don't see any issue there. It depends on just which is the approach to whom. If I'm a festival organizer and you're running an agency, but you're also an artist, then I don't want to hear from you I don't want to hear from you as an artist because I expect that you have an agent. Then I would probably be interested in hearing what your agency story is, if that makes sense. I think it's important to be very clear that if you want to pitch your thing, then and you really are convinced that's a great idea to do a direct pitch at a conference about you being an artist, then do it. But don't put first something and then at the end you come around and say, by the way, I'm also an artist, like the barkeeper who is actually an actor. That doesn't really work. So yeah, just be clear to people.
So any more questions? I think we've covered a lot of topics. Shifted a little bit as well. Yes.
We're gonna see each other soon. You can ask them.
Yeah, well, it's next week that we're gonna meet. So
So yes. So you can, everyone who can do their homework, and by the time we meet, we can have all the answers as well. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Anna and Christoph, for this lovely and thorough presentation. I think your advice were very crucial, and they gave also the framework for everyone to prepare and give it a go now in 1 week, Athens Music Week, and exploit the possibilities they will have. And I think also this year it has got the momentum also. It's getting bigger than ever before. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight, and I will see you in 1 week. Yeah, looking forward to this. Have a lovely evening.
See you very soon.
Thank you, Anna and Christoph.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
ciao, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.